Hey, welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on John Wichert again. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you? Glad to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you on again. Always good to catch up with you, especially with all the things that are going on right now, and we'll get to that in a bit. But so starting where we left off at last time, if you haven't seen the last podcast, please go back and watch that. But me and he were talking about our friend Dustin that tragically took his own life. Um, very sudden, very unexpected. I would say for people who weren't keeping up with him frequently. I'll say that I kept up with him every once in a while. We would text each other, and I don't know if you remember this, but Dustin was from Louisiana, and he was an
Yeah,
LSU,
yeah.
and so we talk about football and stuff like that randomly. But yeah, it was very sudden. I don't even know if I told you this, but I found out through Mary from Mary
You
Burgoo.
did tell me. Yeah, you did tell me that.
Yeah, and she said what she said. Then I had to do some investigating to figure out the details. But I guess I actually want to hear your side of, because the only person I've talked to is I think Nelson and dang, I forgot his name. The guy that would always he always say on God, uh bigger, heavier set black guy that was in our class. He'd be like, "Oh God," and he would always say stuff like just funny. He was always trying to be funny, but I can't even remember his name,
Uh,
I can't remember his name.
I'm
But
trying to think how I found out now. I want to say it was through one of, I believe it was one of your social media posts.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I believe I found out through you. Or yeah, I want to say it was via that
okay,
because I took it. I didn't really. I think maybe we corresponded a little bit after the program,
hmm,
a little bit thereafter. But I hadn't heard from him in years. So it kind of came as a shock to me, like you said, people that don't necessarily, especially me, because I hadn't talked to him in years. So it came as a shock to me. And then I did my own, like you said, you did your own research, and I found out that he had moved back to Mississippi.
hmm,
Yeah, I knew he had moved back to Mississippi and took a job there. He moved back from Milwaukee because that's where he was. He was working at Rockwell, right?
yep, yep,
Yeah, that's that was pretty much the how the events transpired, how I found out. I want to say it was through you, and then maybe I saw some sort of a post on LinkedIn through the program or somebody affiliated with the program too.
oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah. So that was which kind of came as a shock to me, and it kind of goes back to the, a lot of the times that the people that seem the happiest, that are the most outgoing, get along with everyone types of people are the ones that are suffering most. And it came as a shock to me.
yeah, and I think I mentioned this on the last podcast or some other time to you, but when he had brought up, because so I did the podcast with you, Nelson twice, and
You and I did it twice. I think Nelson did it twice, and then Dustin did it twice too.
wasn't the other guy's name John?
Oh, Leonelli. Yeah.
Leonelli. So I
Yeah.
did it with Leonelli, and then Dustin wanted to do the other one, the second one, and he said he wanted to do it on like mental health.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
he said it was because of his dad, because his dad committed suicide from mental health issues. Now, I can't remember exactly what. I'd probably have to go back and watch that podcast. But
Yeah. Because in preparation for the one episode two, the last one that we did, um, I went back and listened to some of the old podcasts just to kind of get some material. And one of the ones I listened to was his.
yeah,
And now knowing what happened, it makes it even more sad about him talking about mental health and just his family situation. Yeah, but anyway, sorry, continue.
So this is just heartfelt. I I hate the word "that makes sense" when we're talking about committing suicide. Like I hate that because it can be a brutal truth, and at the same time, you never want to be that person and be like, "Ah, yeah, that makes sense," because that's
Yeah,
just sounds like a
it's a
horrible
little
thing
harsh.
to say. Yeah, and like I want to be I want to be critical of myself for Dustin to even bring that up to say, "Hey, let's do a podcast on mental health." But he was talking about his dad,
Yeah,
so it never made sense to me that this would have happened to him, and so it never crossed my mind that he would have did this because he just I know even I was roommates with him when we were at the
yeah,
program. And I mean, he would be quiet and to himself and like he didn't go out. Like he would like maybe talk to other females while we were up there, like get on a dating app or something like that. But
yeah,
me and him, we would work out together before we went to class and some other things, but like he wasn't super social. Um but anyways, I say that to say like he didn't show signs of anything like that. Now, granted, we'll see. That happened in 2021, right? Or 2022. We're at the end of
uh,
2023, so it's kind of throwing me off.
it would have had to have been early 2022 or 2021,
Yeah, or late 2021.
late 2021. Yeah,
So this is 2 years after the program.
yeah,
Um who knows? Who knows what happened in those 2 years?
yeah,
Unless you were just super close to him. Um the situation just and I am happy to say that it did not make sense. I'm happy to say that because that means that I knew him as a person who would not have done that.
yeah,
And I'm glad that that's how I remember him. I wouldn't want to remember him as a person who was just sulking or just sad all the time and or just angry and holding a
which
grudge.
because he was the furthest thing from that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was not even at all words I would use to describe him.
Yeah. So so from your perspective, what do you think might be an issue which I personally I do think the whole veteran thing and mental health is a thing, but do you think that that had something to do with it, or do you think it was just all after, like, post-military?
I, I don't know. I don't know, and I hesitate to speculate because I didn't keep up with them.
Yeah.
You know, as somebody who was close may have. I would hate to speculate on that. I mean, it as a so what I will say is, as somebody in the military, suicide is unfortunately ever present,
Yes.
and that is an unfortunate fact. Whether or not that played into what ultimately ended up happening, I don't know. And once again, I don't want to speculate on that. What I did find interesting was that he's once again seemed it seemed like he had his dream job, or at least the job that he aspired to get working at Rockwall. It seemed like it had the makings of happiness, but I know sometimes your things that may seem to be really really good and may make you really really happy don't always turn out to be that way. Because from what I read, it sounded like he moved back, like I said, to Mississippi. So I always kind of wondered what what happened.
Yeah,
But it's
and
just
I was gonna say I know he I want to say his daughter was with the mother in another
yeah,
state, and I think it was like the East Coast, like North Carolina or so. I might be completely wrong, but I think it was somewhere on the
I
East Coast.
believe it was Virginia. Yeah, it was like mid Atlantic, somewhere in there. Yeah, I believe so.
And so maybe taking a toll on him. I don't know. I think he got to see her a good bit. but those types of things can add up. And again, don't want to just like, oh, I bet this was it. Don't want to speculate, but I do think that these are things that we as people should definitely be observant of our friends, even coworkers. If somebody keeps bringing up how they don't get to see their child often, they seem pretty down about it. Talk about it. Like
Yeah.
work something
And
out.
I've even, because this is, I, like I said, for military members, and not just military members, but at least speaking in this frame, for us, it's ever present. Unfortunately, I don't know if the stat is still every 22 minutes a service member takes their life. I don't know if that's still a stat. I know it was at one point, but that's an ungodly amount of people of a certain type of person, certain group.
Yeah.
Um, I had a point. Oh, I should say I had a point to where I was going. I always try to check in, no matter what, on people I work with. Just kind of, it may maybe it comes across as superficial or so, just hey, how's it going? Or it sounds so stupid, but just giving somebody a smile on the street may turn somebody's day around. And I truly believe that. It sounds so corny, and I was probably at one point one of the people that said that's ridiculous, but it, I feel like it can make a difference. It may not in 9 out of 10 people, but that one person, it may, and that's well worth it to me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The the investment of a smile, the investment of saying, "Hey."
hey, how's it going? Or cracking a joke, like hey, whatever it may be. I know I always try to keep the mood in my office now, and even at my previous job, I always try to keep the mood light and fun with the people I can, because you never know what people have going on. Work can be stressful. Work can be maddening. Whatever is going on at home may play into that. I always just try and keep as much as I can a a, a light attitude.
So I try to tell people you're like my awesome story that I tell people all the time because they'll ask me about the military and stuff like that, and then I start telling them about the Coast Guard. I'm like, dude, I know this guy. He was in the Coast Guard. He was in Michigan. He was smashing ice off the buoys. It was
Yeah,
rough life. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, man,
yeah,
Coast Guard's no joke. So you were in some dangerous situations, just not I'm talking firefights, but we're talking like issues with on the water and stuff like that. Did you ever run into situations where you're like, oh man, like we almost lost somebody because of, something dangerous was happening?
oh yeah, yeah. I think I talked about this in either the first or the second episode. We had a chain part. Not to make a long story short, we were trying to pull a chain out of the water with using the deck machinery, and part of our job is to check what's called the chafe of the chain. So that chain is going up and down on each other, and it chafes, and it wears it thin, and it's got to be a certain thickness to be able to send it back out. And part of our job is checking that thickness in the part of the chain that's called the chafe, where it bounces up and down in the sea or in the ocean or in the lake, depending on where you are. But we were pulling that up, and it parted on deck. And I don't know if somebody could have been killed, but seriously maimed. Luckily, everybody was following the safety precautions while you're bringing the chain up for that exact reason. Um, that was one. There was one that I was actually involved in where we were in, we couldn't work buoys in seas that were over 8 feet. Believe it or not, lakes, we get seas that were over 8 feet.
Mm.
Um, we were damn near close to that max, and we had to get these done. So, and it was probably December, so there was still blocks of ice everywhere. There was ice all over the buoys. It was cold. I don't remember how cold, but I was definitely not in shorts and a t-shirt. And we brought the deck. I'm sorry, the buoy on the deck, and or we got it up to what's called the sill, which is like the side of the vessel. And at that point, you're supposed to come in and hook it, and with another piece of machinery to keep the V on it to where you're keeping that tension to where it's not swinging. And until you get that that other piece of machinery into it, it's swinging back and forth, especially in the seas. And you always have a backup when you're going up to it. And a good friend of mine was running the deck, and he said to me, I want to have you do it because he knew I was the most experienced on deck. And all right, fine, I'll do it. So I go up. I had to take a sledgehammer and the hook with me. So I had one of we call it the handheld sledgehammer. It's not one of the longer ones. It's kind of the shorter ones. And I was with one hand while we were taking seas, smacking the ice out of the bale where you hook it, and then I threw the hammer down or the sledge, and then was finally able to hook it. That was another dangerous one, and then probably the most dangerous one for me was where, luckily, it wasn't cold, but it was a pretty dangerous situation where we had a bunch of chain that was rats nested. I'm trying to remember, it was rats nested above the way we were able to pull it out, and there was, to be able to get it unwrapped. I don't remember the exact details, but I know to be able to get it unwrapped, I had to be the one to go up and place something in there to get the buoy on board. But part of that was me walking below where the rat's nested, tons of chain was. So once again, my buddy was the buoy deck supervisor on deck, and he goes, "You want to do it? Why
No.
not? Why? Why not? I'll do it. Sure." So the guy I picked who was going to back me up, it was one of the guys that was in my shop. I said, don't worry about me. I will worry about me. I will not slip and fall in. You do not worry about me. You keep your eyes on that the entire time. What's above me? If you see that even move an inch, yank me out." And luckily, nothing happened. We got it on deck safely, but it was just kind of one of those moments. And now looking back, and you tell the story, you're like, wow, that was really stupid. That was dangerous. You probably shouldn't have done that. But at the time, it was like, you know what? F it. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So there was a few dangerous things, and I always try to explain to people, it's construction is dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Inherently dangerous. Now mix in a pitching and rolling deck with working construction, and that's working boats.
And something that you just said is something I try to harp on when it comes to business or sports, or like I give speeches sometimes to people, and I try to tell them like, do your job. Like if you're working on a team, do your job the best you can, because you never know that split second of, oh, what's that person doing? Or, oh, how can I help them out? And then you're not doing your job, that could be a catastrophe.
Yeah,
You just telling that guy, hey, worry about that because that's going to save my life. If
yeah,
you do your job, you're going to save my life. So don't
yep,
try to save my life. Just do your job, and
yeah.
do it for me.
That's exactly it. And I didn't process it like that at the time. It was more of just, this is the main thread. I'll take care of everything else. You worry about that because I can't keep my eyes on two things at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes, like, if you're a very helpful person, that could actually be a really hard job for you, because you might be trying to do everything like, what else can I do, instead of just focus on this one thing, because that's the
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, it is. And I can see how that translates to business or running any sort of organization.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do your job, do it well. And then if you need to worry about somebody else's job, then maybe, but focus on your job. And I can see that when it comes to being a leader as well, because sometimes I know when I've been in charge of certain things, a lot of the times it's tempting to just do everything yourself, so it's done exactly how you want it. But there's an element of wanting to trust your people and empower your people as well. And I know there's a lot of leadership books that I've read that, you know, how to do that efficiently and well.
Yeah, but that all was my setup question for after you had those situations happen. Um, what was the mood like on the ship? Like, was everybody like, whew, or was it
The
like
one
a second?
the one where the chain parted, because that was more so a kind of a group collective group thing that doesn't happen very often, um, if at all, ever. Was holy shit. We need to the bosun who had been in probably 20 plus years, salty guy, very salty guy. He he looked around, he goes, I need a fucking smoke break, and walked to the back. we we took a 10-minute pause for the cause. People who smoked. I think I went and got a cup of coffee. We took a pause for the cause, and then we did a kind of a safety debrief
Hmm,
and went from there. But yeah, no, it was very the mood was very much of, ooh, that could have been bad.
yeah. And I know like those things can be like just taking that 10 minutes to just reflect on like what the heck just happened. That can be very, very vital. I know. So when I was in the Air Force, there was a guy that passed away who just got into a motorcycle accident. Like he was in my squadron, and I worked with the guy a good bit. He was a cool dude, but he just while we were up there in Minot, he was just riding his motorcycle one day and got into a motorcycle accident and died. And the whole squadron, we just kind of everybody checked in with each other, and then also like I think over like the next day or so, it was kind of like the mood was just kind of gloomy for a little while, and you have to, especially with Minot, like the drinking is all the way up.
Yeah,
Suicides are super high in Minot, comparatively per capita.
for even civilian population.
I think so, that as
Yeah,
well.
okay,
The drinking and suicides, for civilians and military was up because, like, up there, there's pretty much nothing around other than the
yeah,
base in the city, and the city didn't have much. So, like, to paint you a picture, Bismarck was about 2 hours away, and that's the capital, and your
yeah,
drive to Bismarck is just farmland and, like, manufacturing, and that's about it. Like, there's
yeah.
nothing. So, not much to do but drink, and then when people drink, a lot of people get sad, a lot of people drink to be happy, but a lot of people get sad and stuff like that, so it
It
shaped.
has to do with the level too. The level of drinking. If you're happy drinking, that's one story. But if you're just drinking because you're depressed or there's nothing else to do, that's not good. I experienced a little bit of that being in a smaller town. Granted, the city of Detroit was an hour away, so it wasn't like Minot, but you're still in a relatively small area with other than the people that you work with in the coast at your unit, you don't know anyone. And that's I was kind of going to tie that in with, and, I mean, taking a job, whether it be in the military or civilian, in an area that you're not native to, you don't have friends, you don't have family, can be very taxing, can be very, very difficult. Um, I mean, I'm living it right now in Dallas. I learned through the military though that there's different ways to make yourself feel better. Like find an organization. I've started playing a lot of hockey. I've joined it's called the Dallas Warriors. It's an all veteran hockey organization where, yeah, we'll meet once a month for group practices. There's beer leagues that we play in. Um, Going to the gym, meet people at the gym. There's just ways of kind of it'll never be like home. It's never your homies like back home, but it's something. It's camaraderie. It's being able to do something. So I think that maybe that played into the situation with Dustin. Maybe he was alone in Milwaukee and felt alone away from his daughter. And once again, I don't want to speculate. I don't know if that's the case with him. but I know as somebody who has had to move certain places where you didn't know anyone for jobs, whether, like I said, whether it be in the military or civilian jobs, it can take its toll on you.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching and you're like, "Well, didn't you have to do that in the military?" Yeah, but everybody's embracing the suck at the same time. Like you've got people who are going through the same issues that you're going through, and that helps
Well,
tremendous.
and I always say it's built in. I believe this is kind of touching on your point. Is it's your unit is like built-in friends per se. You get to your unit and you know you're going to have, depending on the size of your unit, X amount of people available to you to hang out with you. You live, especially if you're on a boat, you live, you work with them. You ultimately end up hanging out with them because they're going to be your closest friends at that unit. So yeah, who people who would say that they're definitely correct, but it's not necessarily the same as having good friends and family back home.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's a difference with people who've known you for years and know your backstory and all that kind of stuff, compared to just having some new friends. Uh, there were people in the military that I'm still cool with till today, but the people
I
I
was going to ask you that. Do you still keep in contact with anybody from any of your units?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's there's this one guy who, which we'll get into this later, but this one guy who I found out he was from Valdosta, Georgia. Do you know where that is?
Mhm.
And so I was like, "Oh man, that's crazy," because they've got that great high school and college team. He was like, "Yep." And then I found out he was a Georgia fan, so me and him would
Uh,
always, beef with Alabama, Georgia. And see, this was back. I got out in 2018, and Bama played Georgia in that national championship game
yeah.
when Tua came in, and so like all that was going on. So I keep up with him every once in a while. We'll send each other like a random message on like Instagram or something with talking about Georgia winning or Alabama winning or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's some other guys, but like the main people that I still keep up with today are people that I grew up with, and coincidentally, it happens to be two of my best friends that I talk to are now in the military. One of them, I actually went in after him. His name is Jesse, and Jesse is in security forces in the Air Force, and he's actually stationed in San Antonio at Lackland. And
Okay.
my other friend John, he went in after me, and he's a pilot in the Navy. I think he
Oh,
does.
nice.
Shoot, what does he do? I think he does helicopters.
Okay.
But yeah, so they were my best friends growing up. Well, I went to high school with, or even through elementary school with Jesse, and then I met John like my senior year in high school, and then we went to college together, and then he ended up going to the Navy later. But um, yeah, so it's like that military bond is something that we know we all have in common. And so we know like the struggles each other is probably going through. And so me and Jesse will play Call of Duty. And then so, I'm still asking him questions about like, oh, so what's going on, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, and I know it's good for him to have friends that aren't in so that he has something else to talk about other than like military stuff all the time. So,
Yeah. Because that gets tiring after a while. You want to download from your job every once in a while.
yeah, a lot of times people, when I remember being in the military and like coming home or something, and like people, that's what the people want to talk about. It's military stuff. I'm just like,
Yeah.
came back here to talk about other stuff,
Yeah.
and that really gets your spirits up when you have something else to talk about. Like when you're in the military and it's just like one bad thing after another. That's the last thing you want to talk about is
Yeah.
what you're going through every day. So. Um, it is what it is, though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it, having outlets to to vent to, whether they be friends, a pillow you scream into, whatever it may be. It's very important. And I've learned, like I said, I've learned some lessons too that I've taken now with this move to Dallas. That I would imagine some people, they either don't learn it or haven't learned it, whatever it may be. It's because it's not an easy thing to do. I can't stress that enough, to move to a place that you don't know anyone there. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, I can't move away from my family, and I understand that. But at the same time, I also, I'm not going to not take an opportunity just because, to me, the risk is worth the reward,
Absolutely. Yeah.
potential reward. Yeah. When you moved to where you are, did you know anyone, or did you just have your spouse with you?
Yeah, I just me and Rachel moved here, and I didn't know a single soul here, and
Okay.
so I'm a social person. I do
Yeah.
podcasts with the random
Yeah.
human.
You do podcasts and you do the music. So yeah.
Yeah, so I've made a good bit of friends. I guess I'll tell you like my story of what's going on right now. But I ended up doing an in-person podcast with the guy, and now me and him are business partners. Like, yeah, we basically he had like an in-home studio, and so like people are like, in Memphis, it's a bunch of rappers. So he's just got
Yeah.
like, and the funny thing is he's like this really tall, buff white dude from Indiana. Like he kind of moved around, but he's mainly from like Chicago area, Indiana, and he's just got all these dudes like coming to his house, and he had a fiance or wife, and so he was basically asking me to go in with him on like starting another studio or whatever, and having like a company together. And so I was like, no, because I really wanted to pay off my house early. And then I changed my mind because I was like, basically YOLO. Because I was like, I don't want to die tomorrow knowing I chose paying off my house early
Yeah.
over starting a company that I think could be very impactful. So we ended up starting the company. We've got a studio like 20 minutes from my house. And basically, through him, I've made a ton of acquaintances, friends, and now I'm managing like 7 artists. And they were all like people that some of them were people that he had worked with, and some of them are people that I met, and then they brought those other artists to me. So I'm making friends like that. But honestly, other than that, I don't have any like real close friends that have nothing to do with like music or something. Like most of the people I meet is because, music, or I do
Yeah.
photography too. So it's like through those outlets. Me and my wife, we like to go bowling and fitness stuff, but like we don't like go to bars or anything. So we're not making like
Yeah.
social friends like that. But it is what it is, though.
So once again, you figured out a way to make yourself at home, inject yourself, blend in with the population in the new city.
Yeah.
It's something you got to do. I mean, you took it to a to an awesome level by doing starting a business with a partner, but just at the very least, I mean, even you just stay the fitness stuff. Maybe you met people doing that, just as simple as that. So
Yeah.
that's
Also,
awesome. Congrats.
I guess still on the mental health topic, so my friend Ryan that I made a business partner with, as I said, he had a fiance and wife. They ended up getting married the beginning of last year, and ended up getting a divorce the same year. And he was going through it, like,
Wow.
still kind of has the issues, but I know for a fact he was very grateful to have had somebody like me in his life, because like even when he was, they were trying to decide, because they ended up buying a house in Somerville, which is like 45 minutes from here, and he would have to drive the 45 minutes to the studio, and she worked for TBI, which is in Jackson, Tennessee, but it's Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. So they that's why they picked that house, because it was about an even split for both of them to drive to work. But yeah, so they're trying to figure out what to do, like with the divorce and everything. And I was like, hey man, if you need a place to stay, like I got an extra bedroom, you could stay here. And he was telling me thank you, and like I was a super big help for him. And like every once in a while, I was thinking about, I was like, whew, like what would he have done if,
Yeah,
if I wasn't here, or he just didn't have a support group. His brother ended up moving down here, and they actually live together now. But I think his brother said he's going to move back up north, um, like maybe next year or something like that. But yeah, I mean, he was a guy. He literally moved here because of his fiance, his wife. That's the only reason why he was here. So now he only people he knows and stuff is through music. Those only friends or whatever that he has, and then his brother. But it's
yeah,
it's difficult to to be somewhere that you're not from, you don't know anybody, and to just make it and to be social.
yeah. And I think it's also a mind over matter thing too. If you let your like a lot of things in life, if you let yourself feel down about it, you don't know anyone, you're alone. I mean, I know when I first moved here, it was I'd wake up on Saturday morning and be like, I have nothing to do. What am I going to do today? I
Yeah.
don't have work. I I just moved to this place a month ago. I don't know anyone. I don't know where anything is. So I went out exploring. I live a 5 minute walk from the Dart train station. I hopped on the Dart one day, took it downtown Dallas. I'm gonna go explore. So, but it was just kind of that realization of what do I do? Because when I was back home, or living in Florida, I called my buddies. Hey, let's go out on the boat. Let's do something. Let's go fishing. Let's whatever it may be. Here, it's well, I got nothing to do, and in my head, I can see, and I did this, but I've also learned to not focus on the bad, focus on the good. And it sounds so simple, but at least for me, it was hard. At one point, it was hard to do. Instead of focusing on I'm alone, I have nothing to do, I looked at it like it's kind of nice. Maybe I'll take a nap. I'll have a tea day. I have nothing to do. Maybe I'll save a little money. I tried to focus on the positives
Mm,
of the situation, and for me, that always helps to get through it because
mm,
there are positives in every situation, and my Coast Guard experience in Michigan really helped me to understand that because I was not happy. I did not necessarily want to be doing what I was doing where I was doing it. I didn't even know the Coast Guard worked buoys and was on the Great Lakes before I joined. So it was not a place I had ever envisioned. But I spent probably 2 years being miserable. And
mm,
then that last year, I finally wised up. Why am I so miserable? Why? What good is it doing me?
mm,
And that shift in attitude was such a momentous and such a profound thing for me. And it was so simple. Just focus on the positive. Yeah, there may be shitty things, but focus on the positive. Because there were a lot of fun things that were going on. Like I always say I will never get paid what I got paid to act like such a hooligan on the booty deck, throwing mud at people.
yeah.
To 28 years old, chucking mud at other adults. Like no other place is this acceptable. Maybe if you have kids, maybe, but two adults throwing mud at each other, like, this is not acceptable anywhere else. And here I am in the middle of Lake Michigan, chucking mud at some other guy who's, you know, 40 years old. So I tried, and looking back, thinking, I swam in all five Great Lakes. There was just things that I always say, cities like Cleveland and Buffalo, New York, and all these little um, lake towns that I always said they're cities I never wanted to see, but I'm glad I did.
Mm.
Because in reality, would I ever go to, would I probably have ever gone to Cleveland, Ohio, or St. Ignace, Michigan, or Mackinac Island? No, probably not. But I'm glad I saw it. It's a good conversation piece. And being at the job that I'm in now is pseudo sales. I can confer with, or I can conversate with people that are from those areas. I have experiences from a lot of different places in the Midwest, and just through my travels, I have experiences across a lot of the United States. North Dakota and the Dakotas is not one of the places yet. Sorry, I gotta do that. But it's cool to be able to relate with people even on a very quick elevator pitch level of, like, hey, I'm from Cleveland. I go, oh, what part? Because I used to work the buoys outside of Cleveland Harbor. So it's all a frame of mind. Now, are there really bad things that happen in life and you don't want to be in that frame? You want to be in a sad frame of mind for a little while? Yeah, of course. But there's ways of going about looking at the positive. I mean, it goes back to the old thing, glass half full instead of glass half empty,
Mm.
at
Y-
least for me.
So, I guess a little bit on that same like mindset thinking. I love trying to help people understand like what they're going through. So again, that was really cool that y'all took that little 10-minute break after that situation happened on the ship because that can be super demoralizing. Imagine if whoever's in charge was like, "Hey, let's go,"
Let's keep going. Yeah.
you'd be like, "What? What is going on right now?" It'd be
Yeah. Like on one hand, I could see it like, hey, you want to just put it past us. But on the other hand, I think that was the right call to take a minute, take a pause for the cause. And
absolutely.
yeah.
And so like recently, me and my wife were talking about like just things that she can be doing because she quit her job during COVID and because she was working at a gym and then she started her own personal training business because she was like, screw working at a gym, I'll just do this on my own.
Yeah.
Well, now that she's never been a business person like whatsoever, and then now she has to own a business and make some money. Well, a lot of times it gets to her because she's like, what am I doing wrong? Like I shouldn't be doing this, I should be doing that. And so it's just a mental game for her all the time. And like she just got kind of upset about whatever she was doing that day, and she felt like she didn't accomplish what she wanted to accomplish. And I was like, honestly, those are the oh, she was telling me how she felt like she didn't deserve to be doing certain things, like having fun, like whatever she wanted to do. She feel like, well, I haven't done this, so I can't do that. And I was like, honestly, that's the time that you should be doing that. I was like, if you were having a bad day because you felt down about yourself, then go do whatever makes you happy because that's going to balance out whatever crap you were going through. Like
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, like I don't drink, I don't smoke, but like one of my biggest things is like sweets. Like I love ice cream or some cake or something like that. And that's how I get out my my bad days. I'm like, oh man, let's go get some ice cream. And then I'm
Yeah.
good. So, I think it can be a bad habit because sweets and sugar and stuff like that, but like it's a much safer thing than, a lot of people if they have like real bad vices of like, drinking or whatever.
Yeah.
So, um, I I think that's we as society need to make it normal to figure out how to get that status quo back in your life, and more balance. Even people talk about like work life balance. Like I don't know if you know this, but countries like the Netherlands, they give you like 4 to 5 weeks of vacation, like every single job. That's the minimum. And
So yeah, I'm well aware. I deal with people. It's not necessarily the Netherlands. It's like Germany. It's a lot of European countries.
okay,
And yeah, especially in the summer because they give them a lot of the people take the. I think it's like 5 weeks. They'll take it in the summertime because
it's
it's
perfect.
nice. And I work the company I work for is a global company. We have divisions in the UK, Germany, Switzerland, all over different European countries, and these fucking people are on vacation all the time. I get their away message all the time.
Oh
What are you doing?
but yeah, it's
So yeah,
normal for them. It's and
yeah,
like, I think their paternal leave is like months or like a year or something like that. And
yeah.
it's we don't do that. And so then you have to start to question where are our moral values when it comes to business and employees in America? Like we should value a happier employee, which makes a more efficient, better employee, in my opinion.
I think I think there's been a shift. a little bit of a shift in this country when it comes to that. And I think I believe COVID had something to do with it, where people realized that, or companies realized, and now it's shifting a little bit with people trying to bring employees back to the office. But I think a lot of companies realize that the productivity can stay the same, if not more, with people at home when they can get up and go do their laundry if there's really nothing going on at work or whatever it may be. If they work from home on Fridays, Mondays and Fridays, and have essentially a 4 day at home weekend. So I think we've seen a little bit of a shift in that work life balance, and I think we have people our age and younger to thank for that, where we realized. And I'm probably somewhere in the middle when it comes to this. I'm not so far the other way where, like, I need ping pong tables and free snacks in my office. I think that's a little, like, I get it, but I think it's a little ridiculous. Your office is a place of business, conduct business.
Correct.
You want to play ping pong, go to a bar, buy a table yourself, put it in your house. But I get the sentiment.
Mhm.
Um, but I think I think the pendulum has swung more towards that, as opposed to you show up, you do the 8 to 10 hour day, 5 days a week, rigid schedule. And I'm curious to see how this post COVID world takes it, and how many people. It actually, really, now that I'm thinking about it, what'll be interesting is how, when people are our age, get up into upper management levels, how it really changes when they're the ones making the decision.
Yeah, like, that's something I think about all the time is I think about when I look at people, I remember I think Joe Rogan was talking about, something happened to him, and he started looking at people as, like, kids, and, like, that's something I started thinking about. It's like, this angry person, that I might be talking to that's, older than me, like, I wonder what they were like as a child. Like, what happened to them as a kid that made them who they are today?
Made them so angry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, you have to look at that as, in generations.
that's fun.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds like a Joe Rogan thing. He's he'll get so. Sometimes he says the most out there things. To me, that's kind of out there. But you sit back and you think, huh, that does make a lot of sense. It's
Yeah,
kind of an interesting way of looking at it.
yeah, I mean, and
That's probably why he's going to get a lot of money from Spotify soon.
it yeah, and if you start doing that, it will help you work with people. So, there's a guy that I work with, he's a mechanic, and he is known for doing, like, just weird stuff, and people, like, get annoyed by him, but he's actually very intelligent. He was in the I think he was in the Air Force, actually, and, over time, as I kept talking to him, I was like, "Oh, Bob's a kid. Like, he's a teenager. He's probably around 17. Bob is actually 50 something, but I think of him as a 17-year-old because of the way he acts." And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh, he's just a really mature, like, 17-year-old." Because all the, like, the childish stuff he does, you're like, where is this coming from? Like, what is he doing? And I started telling people, I'm like, look, reason why y'all are mad at Bob is because you think he's a grown man.
yeah.
If you,
Well, once again, that's shifting your frame of mind, whether
yeah,
it's thinking of the positive or the negative, or thinking of somebody. Changing your perspective is key. Like what did DJ Khaled major key? Perspective is key on so many things in this situation. And I think that's so important as a leader or even a coworker, to have that perspective, or be able to shift your perspective, because not everybody comes from the same walk of life. Not everybody grew up the way you did. Not everybody is like you. Nobody's like you. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
in reality. So I and there was a woman that was on my boat. Meadows was her last name. Chandra Meadows. She was weird. If you didn't know her, man, she had Krampus dolls. She was just weird, and she was a main prop mechanic. And the prevailing notion of everybody was just weird chick, weird girl. She was a little bit older. I think at the time most of us were in our 20s. I think she was early 30s. So she was just strange. And in my head, I'm like, I kind of want to get to know her. Like, what makes this girl tick? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like we're going anywhere. We're stuck on this boat. What else do I got to do?
Yeah.
So I sat down and talked to her one time, and I was like, just randomly, what made you join the Coast Guard? Start there. And she had this long, thought out, very cerebral answer. And in my head, expect this. This is interesting.
Keep going.
And yeah, I started asking her more questions, and it was one of the most entertaining conversations I've had. And I would talk to her all the time. We actually, my last year, she was really big into different types of teas.
Hmm.
I'm like, who am I to judge? I like tea. I was like, let's do tea time. Let's do it once when we're underway on the buoy run, when we're gone 4, 5, 6 weeks. Let's do tea time. And we did, and we'd have conversations. It was so entertaining. She joined the Coast Guard as a mechanic because she had no mechanic ability whatsoever and wanted to learn.
Oh my God.
I was like, that's amazing. I would do that. That's
Oh,
crazy. She ended up my girlfriend at the time, we had a party, and she ended up coming to the house, and she was like a huge hit. Everybody loved her. It was she was just so interesting, and everybody just wrote her off as somebody just weird chick.
yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, and I think this comes down to being a leader and being a good coworker, and this goes back to the mental health stuff too, where just talk to people, check in on them. So they'll appreciate that, because I'm sure she felt, and I don't know this for a fact, I'm speculating, but I'm sure she felt like she was alone too. Everybody just thought she was weird. And now that I know her, she was too mentally tough to really care, quite frankly. And that's what I absolutely adored about her. She was unapologetically herself and did not give a rat's ass what anybody thought. And I
Mm.
thought that was so cool. I thought that I love people like that. It's just weird, but you don't care. And I love that. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
and and you would have never known that if you didn't take that
yeah,
chance.
yeah. And that's once again, there were so many lessons that I learned being at that unit. Just sit down, get to know somebody if you can. And I was kind of forced, well, not forced to, but I looked at it as, like I said, well, what the hell else I got to do? I'm stuck on this boat for the next 6 weeks, may as well. But you never know. If people are interesting, I I truly believe that. I find myself getting into conversation. I took I love taking the dart train in Dallas. I always meet somebody weird and off the wall.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're cracked out. Sometimes they're hammered drunk. I don't care. I'll talk to them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I met this guy in the dark coming back from the Dallas Stars game the other night. He's like, it's clearly tuned up, and he had the bottle to show it sitting in the back of the train. And he started coming. He made a comment about something to me, and I turned around and we started laughing. And he was something about his old lady while he was riding the dart all day. His old lady kicked him out, and he was now heading home to see if he could butter her biscuit. And I was like, "Hey man, good on you. Good luck. I hope it works out for you."
Oh
But
my,
we just had the wildest conversation. He was talking about hockey and football, and it's just fun.
that's so crazy. Like
Yeah,
the things that so I've started thinking like a lot of people speculate like, oh, we're all living in a simulation. But if you think about what we're doing as a simulation, you start to have, those conversations and stuff that what you're doing. Like you start thinking about people differently. Like that person is a program that has been downloaded to this simulation, this computer that we're all living in, and they're unique. As you said,
yeah,
nobody is like you. So why not find out what this program, this person has in store? Like you have no idea. So
yeah.
find out.
Maybe they joined the Coast Guard because they knew nothing about a mechanic, or they're trying to go home and get butter their wife's biscuits. Like you never know. And I love that. I came off that train ride going, that was freaking hilarious. Like, what? I paid $3 for the train ride. I got way more than that in entertainment.
Oh my
People always look at me. I tell people that are from here that I take the dart train places. Like, oh my God, they look at me like, I got six eyeballs.
god.
They're like, you're not scared getting on that? One, no, not really. I've ridden the train in a lot more dangerous places. I'm not too concerned. And and two, it's always a show. Why not?
That's so crazy. Oh, and by the way, when I talk about Bob, like being a 17-year-old, that's another thing I like to think about is obviously I'm not being disrespectful to him saying that he's like a child or a teenager. What I'm saying is that sometimes that's just who like we view somebody being childish as a bad thing, but sometimes that's just their mindset and their way of thinking. And I would say Elon Musk is a child. Like the things that he does.
The way he dreams things and comes up with things. I mean, just what was it? It was something with the Tesla truck where his his kid asked, "Why do all trucks look the same?"
Mm.
And he's like, "I don't know. I don't have an answer." And that was I think one of his catalysts for the design of the Cybertruck and why it looks so different than radically different than every other truck with the standard size cab and then the bed. It's an incorporated bed within a car looking truck. And I read that story. And that's amazing. And just the way, like, he wants to go to Mars. He wants to do all these outlandish, wild things that in like a kid would want to do. Where like your kid says, I want to be an astronaut. It's crazy. We all dismiss it as like, oh, just a kid being a kid because they see, whatever it may be on TV or whatever spurs them to think of that. But I think there's something to be said for having certain childish thoughts that lead to very adult like visionary decisions.
Mm.
And it's unbelievable what he does. Politics aside, what he has been able to do and thought of is unbelievable to me. Starting with, I mean, with Tesla is just an amazing accomplishment. I mean, how he decided to make it bulletproof. Like, that's just freaking cool.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that. It's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. And so when we start to adapt um and I guess go backwards um to childish thinking, I think those kind of people are a little more creative. They're a little more testy. They're willing to experiment because I think Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was talking about that. He was like, "Have you ever just looked at a child? They're always experimenting. They're like a little scientist running around.
Yeah.
They're just trying stuff. They're just doing things. They don't know why, but they're just looking at the world and just experimenting all the time." And that's it. Like it goes away when you're in high school. Like it's almost, some people feel like they might be programmed to just.
Why do you think that goes away? And I don't have an answer for you. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Why and when do you think that goes away in in most people? Because obviously people like Elon Musk, it doesn't go away. They stay that way forever. But why does it go away in some people in your mind?
I've got two answers.
Okay.
One is I feel like some people are genuinely born with a submissive mindset where they just want somebody to tell them what to do. They don't want to have to think. They just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then some people are born with a rebel mindset where no matter what you tell them, they're going to do the opposite. And I think those rebels are the people who end up, being great innovators and stuff like that. Because I would think a person who is very compliant or submissive, whatever the term, they they aren't willing to probably take risk, so they aren't risk takers. I would
Yeah.
say most of your entrepreneurs who create these innovative businesses, people in Silicon Valley, aren't very compliant people. They're probably trying to avoid every loophole in California that they possibly can. And I mean, we were talking about Trump last time. Trump, not a compliant person.
No, no, no.
Yeah, so that's number one. People with that, just they're just born with that mindset. And I challenge you, next time you're around just a group of people or just anybody, um, think about which person they are. Are they a compliant person or a rebel? They're usually one of the two.
Yeah,
The other thing, I'd heard this a long time ago, but I saw this on a TikTok recently, was they were talking about the school system nowadays in America, and they were talking about how um, it was created by what's his name, Rockefeller, because Rockefeller needed workers. So that's how the school system was born. Was, oh, I need
the
workers.
public school system you're
Yeah,
talking
the public school system was born from Rockefeller. Like he started it because he needed employees. So they built schools to help people learn just enough to work for somebody else to create his empire. And so when you build up people to do just enough to do work for somebody else, you have killed their creativity. You've killed that childish part of them. You tell them to do it this way. You tell them to think this way, to talk this way. And so now, you've killed everything creative wise in their mindset. But if you look at people who homeschooled, private school, stuff like that, they tend to be more of maybe on the rebel side, more on the creative side, because they have a little bit more freedom. They or people who live in, like, I think big cities, because like I went to a small school and people were talking about like, oh man, yeah, we used to get out of school at like 11 o'clock in the morning and we just go do this. I'm like, you got out of school? Like, what? I was in school from 7 to 3 every day.
about.
There was no getting out of school. So, or people would be like, oh yeah, we go to McDonald's for lunch. I'm like, this is crazy. So, yeah, like when you have those different opportunities in life growing up, um, depending on who you were, where you grew up, all that kind of stuff, that affects your thinking, your processing. So I would say around the high school to college area, if you didn't go to college, just after high school, people start thinking like, oh, I'm supposed to act this way, I'm supposed to talk this way, and that's what's going to, if I want to build my life up to be a manager or something like that, that's what I have to do. But then there's other people who are like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and they just go around. They create their own path. So
Yeah,
that's, long story short, that's my answer.
that's interesting. And I think it has so much to do with the ability to critically think and challenge ideas, challenge and question ideas. And that's probably more along the lines of your rebel um, description. To me, I think the ability to critically think is so important and challenge, not in a defiant way or a rude way, but challenge notions. It's so important. Why? Know the why. I feel like a lot of people nowadays don't. It just is what it is. I always want to know why. Why
Hmm.
is it that way? Tell me why. And kind of gets me in trouble from time to time. But I always want to know the why. Why is it this way? Why? Even with, because to me it helps me understand the logic, and the example I have in my head is like when I'm trying to learn something new from somebody, and they'll show me why they did it. They'll show me one way they did it, and I go, well, why'd you do it that way? That's my favorite question to ask with
Mm.
somebody who's teaching me something is, well, why'd you do it that way? Take me through your thought process. Not only do I get to get a better understanding, but to me, if I understand why you did it, I'm going to remember it better.
Hmm.
So I
I,
think that's, go
I,
ahead.
would, I would tell people that in the military because so we had a job where, gosh, what was it? Oh, it was like it was very like all of our jobs. Did y'all have TOs, technical orders, that y'all had to
Uh,
follow like when you did a job?
for like maintenance, we had MPC, maintenance procedures cards.
Okay. So it's
Yeah.
probably very similar. So our TOs were on like these, what like a work laptop looks. It's like very bulky and thick.
Yeah, the rugged, whoever makes them, I forget,
Yes,
but yeah,
I think Panasonic made ours.
and yeah, the rough book or whatever it's
Yes.
called. Yeah.
So we would just open the laptop, log in, and then like just follow the TO. Well, um, I would tell all the new people, like, the first thing you need to do is know why we're doing things. Because if you
Yeah,
know why we're doing something, then you'll know what to do next. Because if you don't know why we're
and it's
doing
going to make sense
yes, and it's going to make sense. But and
usually.
it'll help you problem solve. Because if something's not happening the way it should, and you know why, then you know what to do next to solve your problem. Because if you're
Yeah.
just like if you ask somebody like, well, what's step one is this, what's step two is this, well, what if step
Just
one,
regurgitating information,
yeah, and it's,
not the ability to, because I mean, you hit the nail on the head with, if something goes wrong, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to look at the sheet and go, oh, this isn't on the sheet. What do I do? You have to have, I mean, obviously when you're learning, you got to go by the standard operating procedure or the maintenance card, whatever the TO. But it, when you start getting into the nitty gritty and you're the one responsible in an emergency, you better know the why, because you're going to have to take care of it.
yeah, like if let's just say every time the green light comes on, you do this. And if you don't know why, and the green light's not there anymore, but you still need to keep doing this to save somebody's life, what what are you going to
Yeah.
do? So if you know why, then you can ignore the green light and just keep doing this at the right moment. What I'm just doing this example, but like whatever that task is, um, then you'll still be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish because you fully understand what the heck is going on.
Yeah. No, like I said, I think being able to, the ability to critically think is so important. And I don't know how or why some people have lost the ability to do it, but I think it's so important. And I think that plays into visionaries like Elon Musk. They go, well, why is it this way? But why don't we do it this way? And that goes back to, kids are always saying, but why? 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 And it's through this conversation, it's so interesting to think about why and how do some people lose that.
Yeah, and as I said, school system, like you go to a class, you're in high school. I had 7 periods, and then they changed it to 4 blocks, so we went to the block schedule. But yeah, you go to a class, you're in there for a certain amount of time, and then they tell you, hey, this is how you solve this problem. Do you remember this? Yes or no? You take a test and then you move on. There's
Yeah,
not much like, hey, but why do we do it this way? Don't worry about that. Just do it the way I told you to do it. And so it just kind of kills that. We don't create time to critically think. We're just like, all right, let's just hurry up, funnel y'all through to the next grade so you can graduate and all that kind of stuff. There's
yeah.
critical thinking time.
Well, and I think that we could even take this back to the example you gave of your wife, or where she had a rough day or failed at something, and she takes that time to go do something. Or I'd even argue taking 10 minutes thinking about the where it went wrong, the failure, and how it could have been, whether it's a failure or not. But taking that 10 minutes thinking through, and I do this with myself. I always think, well, how could I have done that better?
Hmm.
Where could I have gone a different way? Should I have zigged when I zagged? I think that's so important too, especially I don't know, everything, daily life. Take a second, think, why am I doing it this way when I could have done it another way? And sometimes your your decision to do it one way was bad, but at least you made the decision. I've always said, always make a decision. The worst thing you can do is be indecisive.
Hmm.
You can always, I truly believe you can always recover from a well thought out bad decision than either just obviously a dumb, not thought out decision, or just no decision at all. Because sometimes making no decision at all can cost you more than making a bad decision. At least if you make a bad decision that's well thought out, you thought about other ways and other ways this may go.
And that goes back to what we were talking about with voting.
Yeah. That, that's the choice of two evils. The
Oh,
better of two evils.
yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. Get out and vote.
Yeah. Whether it's a bad choice or a good choice,
Make a
just
decision.
make
Yeah.
a good decision.
That's funny. That's
All
funny.
right. So now the fun
I, mean,
stuff.
I was gonna say, let's before we move on to the fun stuff, I want one memory from Dustin that you remember, your favorite memory.
Oh my God. And I'm still trying to remember that dude's name, the dude that was in our class, but they would just have so many like back and forths. And it was always just funny for Dustin to just like make a joke. Like Dustin was really funny. And so something something Dustin would do is that's why I was saying, do you remember that dude that would say like on God? Because that's what
I
Dustin
don't.
started saying. And Dustin was saying all
I
the
remember him saying it now, but I didn't know it was him imitating another.
he was imitating that other dude,
I
and
can't
that
remember
was the
what
only
it
reason
was.
why he was saying it. It was so funny, and I think that was probably my favorite memory from Dustin is like, and I'll still hear him say it in my head every once in a while when something happens, or if I hear somebody say "on God," I'm just hearing Dustin imitating him.
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. I think there's two that stick out to me. One's kind of sentimental. I don't know. One time we were riding home from Rockwell back to the dorms, and he had on Big Crit in his car, and we were just
Hmm.
zoned out listening to music. And he loved it because he was from Mississippi. Love Big Crit. So every time I listen to Big Crit, I think of him.
Mm.
And then the other one was he actually, I had my girlfriend at the time came to visit me in Milwaukee, and Dustin ended up meeting us out. And he was just on one that night. He was having so much fun, just cracking jokes. He was absolutely hilarious. And actually, when I found out that he had passed away, I actually texted that girl. I'm still friends with her today. I had texted her and said, "Hey, I just wanted you to know that he passed away." And she was pretty sad too because he just left such an impact on her, and to me that was cool, and so indicative of him. He was just it could be the biggest personality and make such an impact on somebody.
I don't know if you know this, but he loved frisbee golf, froth.
Yeah,
Loved that, and I think his family like I don't think they started like a an annual thing, but they at least after he had passed, they had like a day where they had everybody went and played frisbee golf, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
yeah, that's cool.